Hopefully we get one thing to work today.
Knock on wood.
Let's see. Let's see. Let's see.
Really?
This like happened yesterday, didn't it? Or you weren't here when it happened.
It's on. I got VGA. You don't have the HDMI connected.
There should be a wire, or
Yes,
or
it's
there's
listed, I
another
think.
wire that,
That's it.
that's it?
That's it.
That's it, so we can do that one.
Yeah. All right.
Gonna do it?
Ta-da.
Gonna do it.
Just have to watch where you travel.
Where I travel?
Yeah, because this thing's
Okay,
gonna act like a
okay,
tripwire.
alright, gotcha.
Get on the other
Yeah,
side.
you rub it on the other side. Alright, well, eventful.
20 minutes. Hope you guys enjoyed the class. See you tomorrow, or see you next week.
We'll try to pick up the pace here and get you out in a timely manner. Where'd my keys go?
You got someplace we gotta gotta be?
My keys?
The keys? I haven't seen your keys.
I had keys. We'll get him later, when you guys aren't watching.
That's no in your books.
Anyway, okay, all right.
Okay.
This is a cute little video. Now, why don't I have sound though? Will it have sound here?
You turn the sound up.
Okay. Volume, let me go back. Okay.
Moves each day. You are greeted by a smile when
Everybody
they
hear that okay?
slobber on the seat.
She sits here just like a person does. She's a person. And all the bus drivers know her.
Meet Eclipse, a black lab bull mastiff mix who, like human riders, uses Seattle's buses to get around. She often roams the aisles of the D line looking for a seat and will pop up next to a stranger, which makes perfect sense for a dog who rides the bus alone.
She gets on and off by herself. She was most concerned just about being able to see out the window.
It was almost unbelievable to local DJ Miles Montgomery.
Not that man, oh man, this is nuts.
He snapped a selfie with the dog after seeing her solo ride firsthand.
So the dog gets off at the stop at the dog park and gets off the bus. And I just look out the window and I'm like, did that just happen?
This dog didn't start out riding the bus alone by herself. Like most great things in this world, it happened on accident.
She's been urbanized, totally. She's a bus riding, sidewalk walking dog.
The dog actually belongs to owner Jeff Young, who says it started with constant trips together to the dog park in Belltown before getting on the bus by their own.
Without me. And I catch up with her at the dog park.
A dog amidst humans, a canine among commuters, proving even public transit, apparently, has gone to the dog.
She makes everybody happy. Like, how can you not love this face?
In Seattle, Lindsay Cohen, Como.
The first time it happened, I guess he was taking a smoking break and he wasn't done, but she was ready to go, so she just took off without him, you know. And apparently she it's like 5 stops before the dog park, and she knew exactly where to get off. 5 stops, got off, played in the, you know, in the park, and then he eventually followed and
Caught up with him.
brought her back home. So here's a dog who pretty much knows how to get to the dog park whenever she wants to get to the dog park. And it's amazing that the metro system is allowing, you know, that to happen in a day and age where, you know, people get so litigation hungry, you know, that, oh, here's a dog, it might hurt somebody, you know. But years ago, my grandmother told me about a dog. This was in the days when they had what they called the Intertrain. I don't know if you've heard of that. The Intertrains used to go from town to town. That
So
was,
that's called interurban rail.
yeah, it was the main form of transportation years ago when, you know, cars didn't exist and that sort of thing. In fact, when the car industry started really picking up, they started buying out the Intertrains. They didn't want the competition. So they in fact did make them obsolete basically in the end. But in the days of the Intertrain, a particular dog in the town I grew up in would go every morning out to the country and would get off at the same place, and then many hours later when the Intertrain was coming back, it would be waiting for the Intertrain to take it back home, you know, and that was his or her, I don't know if it was a female or a male, but that was the system that the dog had in place. And it was kind of a novelty, but, you know, then people just, you know, wow, this dog knows what to do. And it wouldn't miss its ride home, you know, it knew it had to have food somewhere along the way. So this is kind of cool in that, you know, sometimes intelligence is.
Anybody ever live in?
We're just gonna video it. We just. Yeah.
Gave up.
Thank you. Thank you.
We can try if you want. Skype?
No, well, I don't have.
I need to
Skype.
put Skype on her computer.
Okay.
Yeah.
The person was accustomed to using Google Hangout,
I see.
and we couldn't get a hold of the person to let them know that, hey,
Their internet was down, so we're just videotaping.
Okay, we can try Google Hangout Skype later on your computer.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks,
Okay.
Rhiannon.
Thanks, Rhiannon.
Thank you. So anyway, that was just an interesting
Anybody ever live in
tale.
Seattle or visit there long enough to live?
Visited. I lived like an hour away.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You ever use the bus system in Seattle and stuff? It's cool that you do it. We actually, her little Pomeranian actually had a trauma to its eye last quarter. And the canine ophthalmologist is right next to the Tustin Metrolink. Well, Metrolink will not let any animal on for any reason unless it's a service animal. You can't even put a little Pomeranian to a dog care and let it on. It would be so much more convenient
It's
just to
kind
hop,
of a shame.
go down to Tustin. I mean, you could throw a football real hard and hit the train station from the ophthalmologist's office.
Yeah. So it was kind of inconvenient that they don't do that sort of thing. Should we do the outside thing first?
We got enough daylight?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, let's go outside, I guess.
Let's wake up.
Leave your stuff, we'll make sure that we secure it.
Yeah, you got the key, or I have the key.
You got it. We have to go that way.
Oh. You guys come up through that door.
Okay.
Now let's get the mental juices. We had the physical juices going. Let's do
We need the spiritual thing first.
Oh, the spiritual. Yes. Animals. You know, animals are Carolyn, see if you can answer that. Yes. Just tell her yes. Of course, you know, we're pet owners. We love animals, and we've had them for many years. And we would never, ever not have animals. Interestingly, no matter if you have cats or dogs, they always have unique personalities. I've never had two cats who have been exactly the same, or two dogs exactly the same. Very, very unique, and which you know tells us a little something about God. I think, you know, he even creates animals that have personalities and that are very unique from each other, and certainly has created human beings that are very unique and very different from each other, and yet, despite our differences, we have commonalities. And when you think about it in a larger scale, we're brothers and sisters in Christ, right? So you know, it's nice to be part of a big family. Anyway, that's my thought there. let's start with a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for introducing into our lives lots and lots of good people, people we love, families who have raised us, family members who have stood by us, friends who have comforted us when we needed comfort. We thank you for the future relationships that no doubt we will encounter that will brighten our lives in different ways. And we thank you for this moment in time where we can learn from each other and a little bit more about research and how that can actually add to, hopefully the end knowledge base can add to the quality of our lives. We ask this, that you bless us today. In your son's name, amen. All right, so, yeah, okay. So, oh yeah, thank you. Let's send it around again. Yes, send it around again. And if you haven't got a syllabus or something, make sure you put a little note there so I remember to send you stuff. Okay. So to get our mental juices going, if you wanted to do some research on memory retention and languages, let's say, like the first bullet says, let's say you thought some languages were easier to learn than others. Let's just assume, okay, that was a hypothesis that maybe you just threw out there. Some languages are easier to learn. Give me, eventually I'll add a language on the board, but give me 3 languages that you think are probably the easiest to learn. Well, Spanish, and Italian, and French. Okay.
German.
I can only put 3 up there because I have to add one myself because this is going to be interesting.
What about sign language?
Yeah, that's the one I was going to add. Sign language.
You're a signer?
No.
Who's the
Somebody-
signer? I
somebody-
forget. Somebody here
is.
sign language.
Oh,
there-
you're going to have to
Okay.
make sure I do this right. Okay. Okay. So let's say we wanted to test this hypothesis that some languages are easier to learn than others. Well, we could kind of decide which languages we would study. Maybe we would not try to go for easier ones, but we might throw one we thought was pretty, decent to learn, easy to absorb, and maybe we might throw a moderate one in there and a hard one, or maybe we might even throw 4 on the board that we thought were fairly easy to learn. And we wanted to see which one was the easiest in the end. So we could design a study, and you would probably have the same, you would want to have it as standardized as possible. The same teaching protocol would be utilized with each 4 groups. So you might have 200 in each group, right? You want to teach 200 people Spanish and only a certain number of words, right? So you might want to teach, I put up there 35. You choose, right? You choose a certain number of words. 35 here, Spanish words, the same meanings of 35 words like shoe. You're going to teach the word shoe in Spanish, shoe in Italian, shoe and sign language. So you pick basically the same set of words, but there's going to be 35 to learn. And so you teach, in very standardized way. Maybe you do it in 15 minutes. You teach these words. And then you give a little quiz after you teach and see how much retention is actually maintained. The quiz would be the same, in the same format for each test. What is the word for shoe, right? So it'd be the same format for each situation, as standardized as possible for each situation. And then let's say, 2 weeks later, you come back and you retest people and see how much is stuck, right?
Anybody have any thoughts as to why we standardize tests that we give?
Why would we want 200?
In each.
Why would we want the same 35 words?
Make it equal.
Yeah, fair, equal. You want it to not be top heavy
with
Shall I-
anything.
Does that make sense? I wouldn't want to top heavy over here and really easy over here. Pick the easiest words I could think of, you know, and the hardest word. Now I'm biasing.
Yeah.
I'm biasing the end result probably in the end, you know, if I make it, you know, so you're quick, and you want the teaching protocol to stay fairly much the same, right?
So in essence, what we're doing, we're creating a scientific experiment,
Right.
especially when we do the retest.
Right.
Because if we don't retest under the exact same as humanly possible conditions that we initially test, then our retest data that we get from, results that we get from the retest
Right,
is
right.
a little iffy.
You don't want anyone to have an unfair advantage of learning the language easier because this instructor used more novel techniques than somebody. You want them to use the exact same techniques, right?
So would you say that of the, is it 200 people, different people for each language?
It could be, or it could be the same
There's typically
people,
formulas that you can use to find out how many
but usually,
people that you actually need for
Yeah.
any given experiment, or how many subjects that you
I
need.
just pulled it out of the air, 200, but it would be a randomized sample. That would be the big thing.
So-
You would, because you wouldn't want to start like with one group, teach them Spanish and then teach them. Now they've
You
gotten
wouldn't want to
practice.
draw all your Spanish speakers out
Yeah.
of the local Spanish SDA church.
Yeah.
Because that's not exactly a random
Yeah.
sampling.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a
but
little biased.
But the thing is, you don't want them to get better at this learning, you know, and if you've got like 3 training trials underneath you, you're probably gonna do better on your 4th trial, right? So the randomized part tries to eliminate that bias. So that's a good question.
So then, for example, you wouldn't say, I'm gonna have the same kind of group, like I'm gonna have race, gender, and, you know,
Oh,
age.
you would try to standardize the sample. It would try to be representative, but it would be a randomized. And the larger the sample is, the more likely it's going to be representative of gender, of ethnicity, of age, and that sort of thing.
But
Now,
it does, it makes the results stable over time.
yeah, yes. And so the larger the number and the randomized features to it, hopefully then counter check any biases that might come up, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Yeah, so the challenge is making sure you have a large enough sample size to be as representative as possible and standardize the teaching process. You don't want someone who's coming in with all sorts of enthusiasm and they're making it so fun to learn the language compared to someone who might be more dry, a little more boring, you know, and so, you know, they don't learn Italian as well as the Spanish ones, the folks that are learning Spanish, because the teachers are so different in their pedagogies, right? You want the same pedagogy, you want the same style, you want the same format. Everything should be as identical as possible, so no one has an edge over the learning process. So when you come out with something surfacing to the top, is being more easily rememberable or memorable, you can remember the words, it's, the memory retention is better, then you can say that's probably because the language is I guess not as complex or ambiguous as another language is. Does that make sense? Because there are certain languages that do have its own. Most languages have its idiosyncrasies. I mean, we can think of the word here, right? Or here we are, right? Which one is it? Is it here we are or here? Context dictates it. But in some languages, you may have fewer ambiguities than other languages.
Yeah. English is a horrible language. for really-
We have different rules.
It is a horrible language.
You know, so there's a lot of just, you know, intuitive learning and I before E except after C and rules that we, yeah, you know, bear and bear. You're bear, you don't have no clothes on, or there's a bear. You say the same word, it can be 2 different things, right? So some language may not have those many, as many of those inconsistencies than other languages. So that's one way to kind of think about how to maybe set up a study. So, let's see if we can. You've heard of Enya, right? Here's the sign you probably know, right? So you're going to help me if I do
Mess up.
this wrong, because I learned a little sign language back in college, but the person who taught us wasn't a person who was deaf or someone who really immersed herself in the sign language community. So I'm going to try to teach you the way I know it, but if I make mistakes, which I'm sure I will, I need help, okay? But who, I understand who is like this. Who? You had it? Who? Think of like a circle. Right? Who can, who can say, got it? So show me can, okay, can go now, can, say, yeah, it's coming out of my mouth, who can say, okay, where, hey, I'm doing okay so far, where, and we kind of skip some things, like we skip the road, that makes sense, doesn't it? Road goes. That makes sense. It goes, right? Okay, so let's practice it. Road. How about road? Road goes. Right? Who? Say. Can. I don't know. Is there a way to remember that? Just one. Okay, can. Who can? I don't know. Like you're hitting a can instead of cans. I don't know. Who can? Okay. Say where the road goes. Where the day. Where the day flows. Right? Yeah, flows. That's it. So you got road, right? It flows, right? It's different, right? Only. Time? That's a good one. I like that one. I can remember it. Okay. Who can say why? Okay. Why? Why? That ends up in why. Why? Why? Who can say why your heart? You have to put it over the left side?
It depends. Some people
sometimes-
do it like this, but most people do it like
Is
this.
it like that?
Yeah.
I've seen it like this too.
Yeah.
You know, for ease, put it over the left side where your heart is. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Where your heart, why your heart sighs. Is that right? Sighs. It's like right? Sighs. That makes sense, right? Okay. As your love, as your love fly. Now, is it? Is it? Oh,
This one.
oh, is that it? This one flies. Sort of like, if you see me do that, that's like
So there's no downstroke on the wing?
No, it's just up.
Okay, as your love flies. Okay, okay. Only time. Okay, we got time, right? Time. Okay, road. You know road, right? Flow, right? Okay, goes. Goes? Yeah, you got goes. Okay. Can. Who? Say. Okay, good. Where? Where? All you have to do is look at her. You got it, right? Where? Okay. How about heart? Right here, or whatever you want. Heart.
you use?
It you know, it depends. You know, you find that there are, correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes people have shortcuts, people have, you know,
It
their
also
favorite.
depends on what part of the country also
Yeah,
they
the
come from
context,
too.
right? And
Yeah.
it,
So
yeah.
like being from
Yeah.
Maine or
Yeah,
or
they might
Dixie,
use
somewhere in
different
Alabama.
shortcuts than
Think
that
of
we
it-
use over here.
Think of the
Because
accents.
if they have slang in the English, they
Right.
have a sign for those slang words that we don't have
Exactly,
here.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
the
it
one
just
I heard when
depends.
somebody's doing something crazy, it's, was this off track or something like that?
Yeah, you can do that for it,
Like,
but you can also just do.
yeah.
Right.
Well, that's about
That's like
universal.
universal.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
universal.
I
Everybody.
don't know about that person. But I'll go with heart like this over the left side because that's kind of where your heart is, right? Only, you remember only? Only? Okay, only. And time, of course, you know that one, right? Time. Blah, 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 blah. Cries. Do we know cries? Okay, I learned it this way.
No, you can do it this way too.
You can do it
Yeah,
either
to
way?
come off of the
Come
face.
on, okay. So either that, you're gonna probably see me do this, because that's the kind of, when your love lies, I guess it goes like this, lies,
Yeah,
lies. So you start like with two fingers out, and
yeah.
now I'm lying down,
Yeah.
lies,
You're lying
lies.
down.
That makes sense, doesn't it? Lies, okay. Okay, where your love lies, only time, again, only time. Who can say when? Got it now? When?
You just bring it around once.
Just ring. When. So it's like, it's meaning fingers.
When.
When. The roads meet. It's like two D's, like my sister and myself, Dora and Darcy. Two D's coming together. We meet. Hopefully we don't fight, but we meet. Okay. There. That love might be. That's like a B. That's a letter B. Be in your heart, right? And who can say when the day sleeps, right?
You can do it like that or just like that.
Okay, so either. I'll probably do this. I learned it that way.
There's different ways, because some people, when you do it like this, they think that you're either saying you're going to throw up or you're being sick.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, they just do like this.
Well, I'm gonna throw up and be sick. Okay, sleep. Okay. So what's the other one like this, right? Sleep.
Yeah, with your hand down.
I'll try it, but previous learning has been better. This one, man. Now, if is that right?
Yeah.
If, right? If it's like an I is out here. If the night keeps. 2 Ks.
Yep.
2 Ks, right? Keeps. All. That's kind of all your heart. So, night keeps. 2 Ks. So night is like the day is like this. Night is like this. It's like it's gone over the sun,
Horizon.
yeah, horizon type of thing. Day is it's starting out, all your heart. Okay. Who can say if your love grows, right? Grows as your heart chose. Woo! Feeling good now. Only time. Right? And who can say where the road goes? Where the day flows? Only time. And who, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
I got ahead of myself. Who knows? Like I know It's up here in my head, right? I know. Only time. All right. So, do we need to practice a little bit more? Think we got it? We got who, right? We got who, right? Who, right? We got heart, right? We got road. We got flows. We got goes. That all rhymes, doesn't it? Say, right? Sigh, right? Cries. Now, we did this, but I'll probably go like this. Time, of course, is easy, right? Only. Why, right? The why ends up in front of you. If is like this, right? If. When. Do you remember when? Do you remember when? Yeah. That's like when. Okay. What else did I miss? Chose. Do you remember chose? Yes. Chose. Do you remember meet? Meet. The two D's coming together. Meet. Right. Grows. Do you remember grows? Ooh, I like this one. I get very dramatic with that. It's like.
Might not want to do that in Italy.
Maybe not. That's probably a good idea. Okay. Keeps. Remember keeps? 2 Ks. Night. Day. Right? What else do we have here that we didn't say? Oh, sleeps. Sleep, I go throw up. Sleep or sleep. Okay. Okay. I think we kind of had it all, don't we? Size. We did that. Okay. Right. As.
It's like two, like this.
Two. Together. As.
It's here and here.
So you do it twice?
Yeah, you do it twice.
Oh, I'm only going to do it once
Yeah,
because I
it's twice.
can't.
It's as.
I'm going to be too slow as is. So okay, as. Okay. I think we got it then. So do you think we could do it to a song?
Yes.
Do you think we could do it to her? I hear the laughter. We might be able to do it. All
Remember,
right.
the camera's facing this way, so
You should
So
come
any-
up with. No. Okay, let her. We're gonna try to do it to the song. Okay. We know we're not gonna be perfect. Okay, but we're gonna try. Okay. Ready? Beautiful song. You know the song, right? 3, 4. Who can say where the road goes, where the day goes? Who can say Oh, here's the good part. I don't think there's a translation for that. We da day, we da day. Right. I feel like I'm getting ready for a football game. Okay. Your heart cried if your love flies. Sometimes it's hard to hear the words. That's my rationale. You got to fly all messed up now because it's like this. Okay, ready? Here we go. Heart.
workout machine is there.
It's a beautiful sport.
Big tires. Oh yeah, but it's a slowing
It's
sport.
Okay, wait. Okay. Try to keep up. Hard toes on the down. Who can say where the road goes? I like this one. Safe road. Well, I like that one. Lonely time. Who knows? Well, now we're in the stretch. Who knows? Woo! You guys did good. Woo! All right.
And guys, you think you could have picked up Spanish, Italian, or French, that large of vocabulary in the we spent a lot of this, last 15, 20 minutes? No.
So if we're accurate and we say the hypothesis is that would be an easier to learn language and more retainable, more memorable, why?
Well, could we say that the variable that affected that was the use of the music?
Could be. You know, we're having several inputs in terms of trying to remember the stuff.
And
But we could
actions
sing a
too.
song.
But
Spanish
actions
song.
too. Actions tend to help you remember stuff better.
So we have the motor,
Yeah.
Visual,
and
kinesthetic.
the visual, and the auditory. We've got multiple feedback mechanisms.
You're not worried about taste
You're
and
not worried
smell.
about tense, you're not worried about
Pronunciation.
pronunciation, you're not worried about.
Exactly. Well, enunciation in the sense of like, is flies like this, or is it like, right? Was it like that? Yeah, okay. Oh,
So-
like that. Okay, there we go.
Present,
So-
future, past tense, you
Yeah,
have to worry about.
that's right. We could skip the thes and all that stuff, so it wasn't, but we have lots of different inputs. So your theory would be that the more input you have into the language, the better the outcome might be, right? So as you think about research topics, you'll eventually want to develop some sort of credible theory to back up what you're testing. And if it does come true, or it does show, the evidence does show, nothing ever proves anything. Again, we've said this
Yeah,
before.
that's a dirty word
We
in
don't
this
like
class,
proof.
4-letter word, proof.
Bad proof. But the evidence might show that if you actually were to do this study, this one might come on top. But if it didn't, then our hypothesis, it didn't support it, did it?
Yeah, and that's great.
That's
Sometimes
okay.
you go into a study and you think, given all the research, all the data that preceded on this topic, you think, this is going to be a slam dunk.
And
And then it's not. And that's okay, because there's no such thing as assuming that it was, collected properly and properly handled. There's no such thing as bad information.
True. So what you
It always
have to
tells a
do,
story.
what you have to do if it doesn't demonstrate what you thought it would be, is you have to make sense of it. Does that make sense? So no research is ever a lost venture. It's just that you learn something in a different way than you thought it would be. You have to make sense of it. Why didn't it turn out the way I thought it should turn out? Making sense of it then is the challenge. Does that make sense? Good?
And we'll get into differences between a hypothesis and theory.
That's right. Hundreds of ways
Common
to think.
vernacular, here's, that's just a theory. Well, there's no such thing as just a theory. Okay, a theory from a scientific standpoint, and that's what we're dealing with here as a research science. It's just the opposite of conjecture. We use it every day, language, on the news, whatever, as basically synonymous with conjecture, when in fact it is just the exact opposite of conjecture. But we'll get into that later.
Eventually, theories, though, get stronger and stronger, and finally, you get to a point where you feel pretty confident.
You be able to control and
this is
predict once
reality.
you have a solid theory.
But who's to say 10 years from now, this theory that was so strongly supported today gets dismantled, right? So that's why we never say anything proves anything. Because what's true today might be easily disproved tomorrow.
Or slightly altered tomorrow.
Yeah, we don't know. So when I did my dissertation, I was curious to see if we had in the military, we had I was the head of the biofeedback treatment center there. And so we worked a lot with people with pain-related complaints, migraines, tension headaches, all sorts of other presenting problems. But some people did very well, and some people didn't for the same presenting condition. And one of the things that I hypothesized, or I wondered about, I guess, is another way to put it, is was your confidence in the intervention a factor? Was your confidence a factor? If you believed in it, if you bought into it, did it have an impact? So that was a theory, a hypothesis, I should say, not a theory, but a hypothesis. So I wanted to see if confidence had an impact on the outcome. That was my whole dissertation. And I also wanted to see, did it have effect whether you had low confidence, moderate, or high confidence, Because sometimes if it's maybe way over the top confidence, maybe it doesn't work, So I wanted to see, that's how I was curious. So that began that journey. And when you think of research, think of it as a journey. Now, what is biofeedback? I threw that word out there, biofeedback. I was actually going to use not sign language, but I was going to try to get you to guess the word, and I was going to go I was going to start with, what's that?
A little charade.
What's that?
Pat on the
Back.
back.
Back, right?
Nervous.
Okay, but the back. And feed, yeah, stupid stuff, right? Feed.
Bye.
And I was hoping you'd put it together. Bye, feedback. Right, there we go. Stupid, I know. Okay. But biofeedback, have you heard of it? You've heard of it, right?
Anybody not heard about the term biofeedback?
I've heard it.
Okay.
Yeah, you probably heard about it, but there are different types, and we'll talk about that in a second. But
We'll actually give you a demonstration later on.
no, actually, that's for a different class.
Was that for a different class?
But we'll show them something else. We'll show them something
Okay.
else. It'll be just as
Classes run together for instructors
Yeah,
too.
they do. But basically, you get feedback from like a computer or a standalone instrument. A little instrument that tells you how your heart rate is doing. Because if you're learning a relaxation technique and the goal is to slow down the heart rate, you want to see if your heart rate is being slowed down. If the techniques that you're using is actually working.
I've actually had clients where I said, okay, I want you to relax, and then they say, I am relaxed. Well, you can't say, I am relaxed when you're actually
Yeah, if you're hooked
anything
up to
but
a
relaxed.
machine and you say it that way, chances are it's not going to show that you're relaxed.
Yeah,
right?
the needle's gonna be way over here rather
Yeah.
than way down here.
So with the machine, when you get feedback on where you're at with something, you can kind of keep practicing to get it down to a lower heart rate, reduce muscle tension, maybe body temperature warms up, sort of.
Like an EKG.
Yeah, that's EEG biofeedback. Yeah. So or they
There's
call
even
it
a device that
neural-
hooks up to a
neural
PlayStation
feedback.
or Xbox,
Yeah.
so kids can use game, and it's connected to an EEG monitor for kids with ADHD.
Exactly. So
We can get one of those.
yeah, we should. Yeah. So the end goal is you're hoping to control something that we thought years ago was outside of conscious control, like heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature. I should show him a clip about the guy though the Iceman.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
That'd be
the
interesting.
guy's, I think he was a Navy SEAL, wasn't he?
No, it was a different guy.
Oh, okay.
But we'll show it if we have time at the end. There are different types. There's EMG, electromyographic. I can send you the power. Well, I don't have it in PowerPoint form, but I can send you the PDF if you'd like. Just make sure your Send
Everybody
it-
sign in?
Make sure, email, and put a phone
Yeah,
number
if you're
there
new
too.
today,
Email, but no,
put your
even if you're
email
not
down
new,
and,
email again,
cell phone.
phone number, make sure it's,
And
the email
If you go
specifically
to
is
bed at 9
legible.
o'clock, say don't call past 9 o'clock.
Yeah. So EMG is electromyographic galvanic skin response, looks at the skin conductance underneath the skin. So the moisture, you know, if you're nervous, you're sweaty. See, so that's kind of.
And those are so sensitive, you don't have to start beating sweat on your skin.
It reads it
can pick
underneath
up
the
just
skin.
minute fluctuations in
Yeah.
the amount of moisture.
Yeah. Thermal is about temperature, HR is the heart rate, respiration, blood pressure. We can control things we didn't think we could control. Well, in the biofeedback program that we ran in the military, we treated a lot of presenting complaints, but I decided for this study, I wanted to be as standardized as possible, so I just honed in on migraines. That was the area I was going to consider in this study. And biofeedback is about establishing mind-body balance, that sort of thing. So, but there's a vascular theory behind migraines. And the theory is that something happens and some chemicals are released and we go into that fight or flight kind of thing. And in the process of doing that, the blood vessels in our brain dilate, right? Fight or flight, what do we get? Dilate. And for some people, it goes overboard. And it starts stimulating some of the surrounding pain receptors. Does that make sense? That's where your migraine comes into play, right? And the medications that you take basically try to reduce the dilation, see? So what you're trying to do is get them back to normal size. Now, the body tries to produce, chemicals to try to do that, but sometimes it's not very successful.
Or
so.
there's damages, or they're dilated too much where
Yeah.
normal is harder to attain again.
hard
Anybody
to-
have a family member with migraine and
I thought I saw you shaking your head, yeah. So some of you know this is not a fun thing to go through. And some people have what they call auras, they know when it's coming, and they can kind of take medications to kind of circumvent the but other people it just hits them out of the blue. And that's a classical migraine. So people, migraine sufferers, it can get really, really bad. So what we're doing with biofeedback, here's what we're doing. It's a vascular theory, again, based on a vascular theory. So when we come in to try to treat a migraine sufferer, it's going to be different from someone with a tension headache. With a tension headache, we're going to do EMG, electromyographic. We're going to measure major muscle groups and try to reduce the muscle tension because it's a muscle tension headache, right? When we do migraines, it's a vascular theory. So we're going to aim for blood flow. We're going to try to warm people's extremities, primarily their hands, with just their minds, right? And so if you wanted to warm your hands with just your mind and get feedback from equipment saying if you're being successful with that process, what could you maybe do to try to do that?
Just move.
Say it?
Just move.
Just move, right?
But you're supposed to do it with your mind.
But you,
Look
yeah,
at that picture.
that could work.
They could imagine their fingers and hands being over that fire.
Yes. This is for, and I've been able to almost get my hands to warm, not quite up to 10 degrees, but just using imagery. And what I usually think of is my hands over a campfire. And I try to get my hands to get tingly, and especially when they start to get tingly, that temperature thing starts, like, I am warming up, So the other thing I think of is putting my hands in hot water, I really try to image that. And lo and behold, some of us can do that. We can image it, and it happens.
yeah, almost anybody can learn to do it to one degree or another.
Yeah, some are better at it than others. But think about that now. If my hand's warm, what's happening to the blood vessels in my hands?
They're opening up.
They're getting bigger, right? So what's happening to the blood vessels in my head?
Constricting.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
the meds do,
Simple
right?
hydrodynamics. If you
That's what
pinch
we're
a
trying
garden
to do.
hose, the water squirts out
Yeah.
real far. You let that garden hose go, the pressure goes down.
Yeah. So you got the idea, right? Logically, it makes sense. If it is truly a vascular theory, and we have, study after study that suggests that if we do this, get our hands to warm, and sometimes people can get so good at this, they'll actually start circumventing their migraines.
Why does it have to be with your mind? Why couldn't I do this and my extremities are gonna be warm anyway?
It's like it's only affecting a little piece, but when you do it with your mind, you're like, the whole system is being affected.
I see.
Yeah.
And plus it's possible that the
This is
veins
still
leading
cold,
leading
this is still
to-
cold, right?
will open up a little bit too as your hands start to warm up. So it's more than just your fingertips.
So this is just really,
Yeah.
and
That's-
over
that's
time,
involved in
it
that
probably
math
will
or
work,
whatever.
you'll get warm enough and this will start, but it seems to be more effective when we can image it.
That's only for migraine, not for tension.
Not tension
No,
headache,
no.
no, we wouldn't go we would do EMG for tension headaches. So we hook
Muscle
you up to
tension.
electrodes and we try to get the muscle tension to decrease. And you see it on the
Yeah, we've all,
computer.
we all pull stress in different ways.
Right.
For me, it's in my jaw and in my neck, and also my jaw and neck feel like they're kind of hurting, and you just don't realize that you're tense.
Yeah, scan yourself right now. Yeah, okay, yeah. Let your arms hang down. Feel like there's weights attached to your hands. Can you feel the weights? Feel them drawing you. Feel like you're a rag doll. Now, if we just went back a few seconds, we were probably a lot more tense than we are now. And it didn't take much, just a couple of suggestions,
I could throw a big mathematical formula in front of you, and I guarantee all those muscles, especially if you're a math folk.
Oh, and I love math, so
Oh,
I wouldn't do it.
she'll relax,
Yeah. But now if I get a phone call, my stress levels
She
go up.
hates the phone.
Because I used to be, when I was in the military, when I was a kid, I wanted a pager so bad, It's like, oh, you'd be so important if you had a pager on, and then you get into military, you get those pagers and you're going like, I wish I didn't have a pager and have to be
It's
on
like
call.
walking around with an invisible leash.
Yeah, and now the phone is associated with, now I have to take out a fire or something like that, because, a lot of times we have to deal with fires here, student late registration or something like that. So the goal is 94 degrees in the hands, and that should have a corresponding effect on constricting the blood vessels in the brain. And some people get so good at this, they don't need meds anymore.
Is there something about maybe not being able to concentrate on the image because you were so much pain that the person can't actually...
This is true. But after practicing and practicing and practicing, some people can just
Turn
like
it on
that,
like a switch.
turn it on, so and start to immediately feel the hands warm up despite the pain. And I've had to help people when we've been in countries where on Maranatha trips in the past, where we didn't even have access to aspirin or any medications, and I've walked people through this stuff, and the migraine is gone. It's amazing.
Now, there's another medical condition called Raynaud's disease.
Where your hands are naturally cold.
I mean, where it becomes actually damaging.
Yeah.
And this is actually the treatment of choice,
This is treatment of choice.
over and above medication.
Yeah. Not to say meds are bad.
No,
I am
we are
not
definitely
gonna ever-
pro-med. We're
we are
not going to fight
pro-med.
this.
We are.
Tom
After
Cruise School of
surgery,
Psychopharmacology.
that feels good. All right, yeah. I'll never forget one time my grandmother was having pancreatitis types of problems, and one day I walked into the room that she was in. She had a major attack, been throwing up, and she saw me and she looked at me and she just smiled and she said, Dora, I feel so good.
Oh, she was saying that in the wheelchair as we were wheeling her through University of
Whatever
Michigan
they
Hospital
gave
down
her,
to the car.
she was feeling really darn good. and it was funny because we went out to eat. My aunt, we all together.
Yeah, about 2 hours, 3
2
hours
hours
before.
on the way back home, we're out to eat, you know. And my grandma, who always is anxious because of these attacks, and we found out later is that every so often her intestines would pinch. You know, and when they pinch together, nothing can go through. And if it can't
Massive
go
flare
through,
up.
it's going to come up, right? And of course, you have waves of pain when this happens, you know, preceding this coming up type of thing. So, you know, she was always cautious about eating. I mean, that just gave her a complex about eating. But here she is in the restaurant with all these good medicine, and she's like wolfing this stuff down right and left. He's outside vomiting.
Because I had a
Food
egg
poisoning.
McMuffin minus the Canadian bacon that morning, and I'm guessing I got a little botulism or whatever from
Yeah,
Mickey D's,
yeah.
and I'm just
And Grandma's having a good old time in there.
I'm
We don't
getting
care
just
where
as-
he's at,
just
you
as
know.
fast as
we're
she's
just-
shoveling her in.
Oh man. Anyway,
It
it
was
was fun.
miserable.
She felt so good. But you know, biofeedback can be used with phobias very well. I mean, some people now. I love the jumping spider. You know, people think I'm crazy, but I think it's cute. Look at the eyes. Look at it. Anyway, okay, that's just me. Okay. But for phobias, it can be very helpful because you see yourself relaxing. You have this fear stimulus that you created from low-level fears like cartoon figures and spiders, all the way up to a real spider in the room that over maybe several weeks gets closer and closer to you. And so eventually you're holding the spider and you're staying real relaxed with that process.
I guess I'm a little confused with biofeedback. Is it what you do in your mind?
No, you're getting feedback. Yeah, it's what you do in your mind. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. You are absolutely right. But you're getting feedback on what's happening, you know,
So it's
with the
actual-
techniques.
It's what the computer's giving you back.
Yes,
Oh,
you get
okay.
that constructive feedback loop.
Yeah,
You
and
can-
it's
you
nearly
can-
instantaneous.
you
I
can-
mean, we're talking milliseconds
Yeah.
of difference between
So you
changes.
might find out that muscle tensing relaxation exercises aren't as effective with increasing temperature than imagery is, or breathing techniques. So it helps you accentuate and know what your body is doing, because sometimes we can't read our bodies quite well, you know, as well as we would like, you know. We may think we're relaxed right now, but we may be really high on the stress level, you know, and we may walk around like that all day and not realize, you know, how we're affecting the body and our health, you know.
And when we're tense, it produces all kinds of nasty, you know, hormones, cortisol. It just, you know, we have kind of a holistic view of men within our faith group, and you know what goes on here is going to affect what goes on everywhere else in the body.
You know, we could probably show them the little biofeedback monitor. Do you know where it is?
It's in the big blue bin.
No, it isn't. No.
No?
So let him talk a little bit about my love of spiders.
Oh, yeah,
I'll
she-
go find it.
Where's it at?
And it's in a little box underneath my desk.
Okay.
So you might not find it. But,
Yeah. Anybody here afraid of spiders? I mean, I don't mean like, I mean, afraid of spiders. To the point where it's phobia. Phobia is an irrational fear. There's a healthy fear. If I see a rattlesnake, does I have a picture of that? I was out hiking. I guess it's almost 2 years ago now. And I had a bunch of water in my backpack just to make the hike more difficult. And I looked down and there was a rattlesnake right in front of me, right on the road. And if you don't think a middle-aged man can't jump up in the air mid-stride and leap over, you know, like Superman over a tall building in a single bound, you're wrong, because I can, and I did. But I don't have a fear of snakes. It was just a startle response. And there's a red diamond rattlesnake. They're not aggressive at all. I got pictures of it. Anyway, but anybody? Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 meaning not afraid of spiders, and I'm talking just even something benign like a granddaddy longlegs. Anybody just really just, I like spiders type of thing. Okay. Anybody out of 3? Anybody out of 7? Okay, 7. Okay, that's about a 7. And 10 is that you are on the table screaming. We have a colleague. We
I think it
refrain
depends on the size too. 'Cause
Anyway, she actually is a faculty member, and there was a small tarantula in the room, and she screamed, jumped on up on her desk, and everybody came. She was next to my office when I was at counseling, where counseling center used to be, and she was on the desk screaming until plant services came down and caught it.
Well, there's all kinds of weird animals down there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They're still
and
there.
bugs and anything else. I actually
down Los
found
Sierra Hall.
something crawling around. It's not a spider, but it's something
Yeah,
else.
we've had a skunk in the walls for 6 months now.
Oh, really?
A skunk in the wall?
It's in the air duct.
Oh, so but it must have a way out,
Yes.
a way in, so because it's
Yeah.
eating or something.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Probably doesn't have babies this time of year. That'd be a good time
Not
for
right
plant
now,
services
though.
to block it off.
Volunteer?
Volunteer? Let's get, yeah. We like spiders so much, we actually have a small collection.
No, what? I found a bug. I found a bug.
Oh, you found it?
A bug.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say,
So maybe you take
Guys,
this
feed it to a spider.
my head is so plugged up, I can't hear you.
Since you found a bug, you can feed it to spiders.
Yeah, she wouldn't do that, she'd have the spider catch it on its own.
It's not one of those neat bugs, cute bugs, like that spider. It's not a cute spider, okay? But anyway, this is galvanic skin response.
The sweat.
So it's trying to get a feel for the conductance under the skin. So this little noise, you hear it? You hear it? Okay. Your goal is to try to just relax. Oh, that's good. That's good. So relax is good, and it doesn't do as much noise as that.
You want to get a good base, what's called a good baseline.
Yeah. But if are you afraid of bugs?
what type of bug?
I'm not exactly sure.
Not a small one.
What do you think it is?
Not a
Bigger than small.
I don't think it'll bite, to be honest.
I don't think it will bite.
Well, most things don't.
No, it's not as big as you think it is.
Are you gonna put it on me?
Well, I'm just wondering if you're gonna respond.
Would that have started going off already?
It should have gone up.
Oh, she's calm.
She's
then.
good.
Yeah.
Let me put it up so at least it's visible.
You got the connector on right? It's a little flaky.
Okay. So now you can hear it, right? Ready? 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 She did good. She did good.
Oh my god.
It is a spider.
Okay.
It is.
What I did just a second ago was engage in deceit. And you can do that in research as long as after the experiment you tell the person that what went down, that you own the deceit. Because sometimes, not everybody can, feels comfortable doing that, but if you tell a person what you're testing for, that can influence results negatively. You can't get a pure result oftentimes if you tell a person what you're testing for. So deceit is...
Sometimes when you're kind of on the spot, it's not fair, is it? But she hasn't seen the bug.
Is it going? I'm so... There we
But you see, it works. You get feedback, you work on things, you practice things, and then you get to a point where nothing phases you. You can keep it down no matter what. But I've only had 2 or 3 people. You'd be like the second or third person who didn't quite go, One person actually went down as I came towards him. It's like,
And I did this once, and I didn't know that the person had a spider phobia, and I did it in class.
Oh.
And after that, I always asked, okay, does anybody here have, that's the reason I was doing the, okay, you guys, 1, 5, 7. I didn't want to get to a 7.
So you can see how this would, with feedback, you can make corrections, you can practice things, and hopefully get the thing to go down instead of go up, right? See, this is human nature. I mean,
Yeah, this little cheapy thing, this is not a professional instrument.
This is
Something we
a
got Radio
Radio
Shack years
Shack.
ago.
$15 thing that we got at the time. Now I hear Radio Shack's heading into bankruptcy or something. What? Yeah.
Yeah, Radio Shack's not doing well.
Yeah.
So for example, if I'm doing some kind of research on student response or student tension levels during the exams, I would plug a bunch of students up to something like this.
The danger when you're talking about kids is getting permission to do such a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any study in a
You might
school
as well
district, private
kiss it
schools are
goodbye.
easier than public schools.
Forget kids.
But it is really difficult to do studies on children.
Unless you really have
Because
good
the whole informed
connections.
consent thing, and then you gotta go through the principal and the
All it
principal's
takes
boss.
is one
and-
person saying no.
Yeah.
And your whole
They're gonna
dissertation,
consult
all that
legal
work
counsel.
you put into that, if you want a child population, down the tube.
Well, is that one of the problems then with like any form of reform or like?
Yeah, because the younger the person is, the more challenges it is to get permission to go in and do studies on, And even with medications, we run into problems, even with kids with schizophrenia, who you desperately need to help and help as fast as possible. Medications are the treatment of choice, but testing them out on kids, they run into so many problems. So it's usually just a fallback treatment process that happens instead of a study. What we did notice though with our biofeedback program is that we had variable effects. Some people did better, some people didn't do well. Some people had no effect on them, because there are basically individual differences, So again, my idea is maybe confidence has an impact, right? Confidence. And I could springboard off of that from, placebo, when you think of it, right? But, placebo effects with medications, there's always going to be placebo effects with medications. We now know that over time. Medications isn't totally the effect of the medication. There is a placebo effect for no matter what medication you take, always a placebo effect. So I use that as a springboard to suggest that, maybe confidence would have an impact on outcome. And sure enough, I did find out that it did have an impact. Now here's a graph. This is what I found in my study, but this just tells you a little bit about correlations, which you probably have seen in undergraduate school. It ranges from +1 to -1, and 0 is where there's no relationship at all. So 0 is kind of starting to look like this, these two variables, there's no pattern being demonstrated.
Like somebody took a shotgun and just randomly blasted.
But this is showing a pretty good relationship between two variables. So what this is saying is the shorter you are, the smarter you are. That's what that's saying. So as one goes up, the other goes down. That's all right. So I had to now again with your study or with your.
That can't be true.
I'm not
You know why?
listening to him.
Because you married me.
Anyway, assumptions are basically you assume certain things in a study. You assume if you're giving out surveys, people are going to be honest with surveys. You just think that's just a general assumption in most studies if you give out a survey, right? You make an assumption, like in my study, that biofeedback can have a positive impact on presenting conditions. Not everything under the sun, but on some conditions that research has been conducted on. And subjects are generally honest and that sort of thing. I actually created a survey for this study. I call it the BICS, Biofeedback Intervention Confidence Scale. And one of my assumptions was that it was a valid instrument and it was reliable. Okay, so people took this instrument, before they, they engaged in the treatment process, they took the scale, I kind of figured out where they were at in terms of confidence level, right? Because that's what I was interested in. They went through the treatment, and at the end of the treatment process, they took a survey where they rated their pain, their migraines. Did it reduce in intensity? Did it reduce in frequency? And what I found is that people who had higher levels of confidence, generally, it reduced in frequency and or intensity. Compared to people who didn't have confidence in it. So why is that important? Well, if confidence plays a role, don't you want to try to increase their confidence before you put them through the treatment process? So, it's like a pep talk, or whatever. You try to use a rationale that makes sense to them.
And
So
if you're
try to increase the
really
confidence.
busy clinician, and the person just has no confidence that this is going to work, well, you might want to try a different
Try
intervention for
something
them.
else. Don't waste their time
Don't
and
waste
their
your time
money,
with them.
right? That's unethical.
So is confidence in themselves, like.
Confidence in the
process.
treatment. Confidence in the treatment is what we were looking at. I couldn't tell them that's what I was doing, because there might be some people out to prove you wrong or right, right? But if you use deception, after the study is done, you're ethically bound to go back to them and say, this is what I actually did, all right? Ethically, I have to tell you, that's my obligation to complete the study. So they volunteer for the study, you tell them you kind of tell them in an ambiguous sort of way, not giving away the real identity of the study, you give them what you can, and then you do the study, and then you tell them the truth. The whole truth and nothing but the truth. Okay, all right. And we had to make sure the treatment stayed standardized. So it was one biofeedback technician who is really good at this stuff. Every migraine sufferer who came in and agreed to participate in the study got the same 6-week treatment process. That's the assumption. That was a standardized process. We had her do one thing the first week. She would see them for 6 weeks. Same thing the first week, same thing the second week, same thing. So it was standardized.
Even the rooms were identical size, and the recliners that they set
Actually,
in.
the same room.
It was the same room?
Yeah,
I
same
thought you
room.
guys had 2 rooms.
We had 2 rooms, but we.
But it's the same
it
room
was
each
room.
time. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So those are assumptions, okay? And the rationale is, you want to understand more about what's going on with biofeedback, why it works, why it doesn't work, how can we make it more effective, and if confidence does play a role, then maybe we need to provide more rationales that it is a viable treatment option before we let someone into the program, and delimitations. Think of delimitations as the D as you're in the driver's seat. Think of that, okay? So this is what you're doing. You're selecting these things. So you're in the driver's seat. Delimitations meant that I chose one hospital to use. It was the hospital I worked at. I ran the biofeedback program. That was the one hospital. I chose the one hospital. So a limitation, if you go in the opposite direction, limitation was it was confined to only one hospital. So I didn't get a really broad, base with several hospitals across different states.
Nearest other hospital's
Yeah.
30 miles away. She didn't have privileges at that hospital.
So.
It's just, she was stuck with that one. The limitations is stuff you just can't control.
And so it only involved military-related subjects. It was either active duty personnel or retirees and their dependents, or active duty dependents. So that was a D limitation. I chose that population. I chose only migraine sufferers. I didn't go for tension headaches. I didn't go for anything else. And I chose a 6-week treatment protocol. So those are the things that I was in the driver's seat with, right? Things I couldn't be in the driver's seat were what we would call limitations. I hope that makes sense. D, driver's seat, right? Mm-hmm. Limitations, things I can't control. So it happened to be a small sample. The larger the sample, the better. So that's a limitation, to have a small sample. Mm-hmm. It involved both self-referrals as well as external referrals. You can either look at that as a limitation or delimitation, actually. But self-referrals are gonna be more motivated, you would think, than the other folks. And you know, what if the technician had a bad day? You know, what if she had family issue that preoccupied? You know, you might not give, you still are trying to do a standardized treatment, but you may not be as good today than you would have been yesterday because of whatever stressors you're going through.
We've all had off days.
Right?
I mean, just happens. Those are your teachers. If you come in and you're just getting over the flu, or flu is just onset, you're not as good as a teacher as you were the day before. If you're a parent, you know, you're probably a little short with your children if you're starting to feel bad. You can't control that sort of thing.
That's right, that's right. All right, so now, the power of confidence. Whew. This is the guy, Escudero, doctor, physician. He created what he called no easy therapy. I like that name, no easy therapy. But basically, he would do surgeries without medications and or anesthesia.
Why on earth would anybody want to do that, other than just to say that they could?
Yeah, why would you do that?
Why would
For
you do that?
countries that are lacking in
Could
drugs or
could be.
anesthesia.
It didn't happen, I mean, he had the equipment, he had the drugs, but this was his niche in life. He did these types of surgeries.
Some people are allergic to general anesthesia.
They would actually maybe put themselves in a life-threatening situation. I mean, that's how allergic they are. You know, so you know, and some people don't respond well to anesthesia, right?
Yeah.
Some people get.
My mother will get sick as a dog after
Yeah.
anesthesia,
Yeah.
even
Well,
with,
too.
now, she would never choose what you're about to see. She put up with nausea, but that's sort of at the base end of what can happen in anesthesia. No amount of anti-nausea meds post-op will keep my mother from a couple of days of just dry heaves. She's miserable. But some people, it goes well beyond that. It goes into that it can kill them.
So some people will opt for surgery without medications or anesthesia. Some people just feel that they'd rather do that. But you don't want to go into a cold, do you?
Well, a little bit of practice.
You want to have a little practice to feel like you can kind of numb the pain and make it go away, make it absent, that sort of thing. And he teaches people how to do that. All right. So I'm going to show you surgery. If you
It's
don't
a
want to
real
look
surgery.
at it, just kind of stay forward but close your eyes. All right. All right.
Okay, if you're squeamish,
All right. All right.
not something to watch.
You okay? You okay? All right, so it's actual surgery. This is a person going through the surgery, has no medications, no anesthesia, and let's see if we get a little look at the face in a bit. Okay, so it's going to start. Okay, so if you don't want to look at it, don't look at it.
Muy bien, María.
For hernia.
Muy bien. Vale, metemos esto dentro. Sí. Vale. ¿Notas cómo entra dentro? ¿Eh? Sí.
This isn't lancing a boy, obviously. I mean, this is real surgery.
Is that a small incision? That's not a small one. Do you hear any screaming? No? We're in shock. Watch. Laughing. Is that what she said? I'm hungry?
Oh, now that's her leaving the same day.
Same day.
She said I'm hungry,
Yeah.
That was an out.
I always wonder what she
She's
said.
probably thinking about like
Anybody,
ice cream or
anybody
something.
speak Italian? A little bit?
That's not Spanish.
Oh.
That was Spanish.
Oh, is that?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was
That
Italian.
was
What'd she say?
I'm hungry. I'm hungry.
I'm hungry.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the first thing that'd be going through my mind after somebody was mucking around in my innards. I'm hungry.
It wasn't a small incision. I mean, he was poking that thing back in, right? I mean, that was a big incision. And then you look at her face and it's like,
Yeah, she's laughing.
yeah, she could have been in a movie or something for all we knew if we didn't know she was going through surgery. But he does this all the time. You could do that. Did you hear me? You could do that.
With the proper motivation.
With the proper, if I gave you $1 million, would you do it? If you learned the techniques? If you learned the tech, but if I just gave you $1 million and you had to go in without any training, would you do it for $1 million? That's surgery.
You need surgery training.
$1 million?
For $1 million. Some people might. See, some people might.
I'll take $1 million.
Pass out. Okay. Yeah, but you could do, and you know the thing is with surgeries without medications, you heal quicker. Think about that. Why? Why would you heal quicker?
Because there's nothing in your system.
There's nothing in your system that's deadening, you know, the narcotics that are put in your system, that shut your system down basically. But you're now you're in the healing process continuous. It doesn't get shortchanged. Does that make sense?
What about afterwards, her incision? I mean, like the
Yeah,
like the
people can
scar-
keep it going. They can keep it going. There's another video of another guy I could show you who went through his surgery, and after surgery he just kept sending, you know, messages to his body. He's okay. He's not going to feel any pain, that sort of thing. No pain.
So do they do this for pregnancy too? Like
Can.
transfer over?
You know, in a sense, Lamaze is kind of like trying to teach people, right? To how to deal with the pain. You know, so yeah, you know, so we can do that.
And please, again, don't get the impression that we're anti-meds, because
No,
I
we're
assure
not
you,
anti-meds, definitely.
in no uncertain terms, we are
Maybe I
both
should have taken something when I
pro-meds
Yeah.
when indicated.
We can do it. The question is, would you do it if you had the choice? Most of us probably would say no. I'd rather be out. I'd rather, oh, Dora, I feel so good. I'd rather be there, right? But we could do that. You know, if our backs were against the wall, we could learn some of the techniques. And, you know, in a sense, people kind of look at this and go, isn't it the work of the devil? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that's the work
I
of
can't
God.
believe how happy she was. I mean, I could understand, like, if she was maybe yelling or in pain, but she was just like, I'm hungry.
Yeah, I'm hungry. He's basically sewing her up and she's hungry already.
Like,
Okay.
it made me wonder if she was in so much pain, she didn't even feel it. Like, she was almost detached.
She was not feeling any pain at all. It gets to a point where
Or
people
you mean
describe
from the-
this
that came from
experience.
the hernia.
What they describe is they feel like there's it's very numb. People are kind of prodding and probing and moving things, but it's not perceived as pain.
Sorry, I'm so plugged up, I can't hear.
Not perceived as pain.
hypnosis.
Yeah, that's a form of hypnosis.
And
it's not the cheap
I get
Las
kind of
Vegas
careful
sideshow
with that.
hypnosis where you're quacking like a duck.
You know, hypnosis has gotten a bad rap over the years
Yeah.
because you see these people acting like, you know, entertainers making people look like monkeys and having them jump around on stage and
Yeah, it's,
and
you
doing
know, a
stupid
bad off the
things.
strip Las Vegas show.
That's
you know.
not what hypnosis is about. And generally, hypnosis is when you've had a really serious trauma and you can't talk about it, so you can't resolve those issues. Hypnosis is a way to kind of get you to a relaxed state where you can start, addressing those issues. So you're totally in control. One person kind of said, what he often does is he'll ask people questions when they're in that relaxed state, and if they don't want to answer, he says, why don't you raise that finger? If you want to answer, raise the pinky and then start talking. If you feel uncomfortable, or it's time to stop, So the control is yours. We have been told hypnosis is about giving up control.
Yeah,
It's not
there's
that at all.
in many, especially in religious circles, there's a misconception about hypnosis that you're giving over your control of your mind to another being. There's something diabolical or demonic about it. But what they've seen from brain scans is that your frontal lobe, the area that controls thought and reasoning,
Critical thinking.
is actually quite active during hypnosis. It's not suppressed at
She
all.
wasn't like groggy, was she? She was
She was a happy
fully
camper.
awake, able to talk to the.
She was like her grandmother. This feels so good.
I'm hungry. Wolfing down that food, right? But this is, you know, you can get to that point where you can numb body. In fact, one time I was at a bank and I was doing my transaction. This was years ago when I was in college, and I heard the loudest noise outside. I knew right away there was an accident, some sort of major accident. I ran out, and I was the first one to reach the car. And the young man who had been driving wasn't hurt. The gal who was sitting in the back was seriously hurt. And he wanted to move her, and I said, don't move her. You know, you're taught, right? Don't move people. If they have a back injury, you can make it worse.
Car's on fire, they
Don't
would be.
move her. But she was in an enormous amount of pain. So what I did is I just started talking very softly, tried to get her breathing down, tried to get her to relax. And by the time the ambulance got there, her pain had gone down considerably. And she, you know, from where she was very frantic to where she was now, you know, with it, you know, and you know, of course, relieved that the ambulance was there. I never got her name or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure she survived and that sort of thing. But you know, what the mind can do is amazing. We don't tap into, you know, they say we don't tap into what we have capabilities of tapping into cognitively. Well, I don't think we tap into what we can tap into physically or spiritually for that matter. We have so much potential that God has given us. And frankly, we just don't use it because we've never learned how to. Really, that's the reality of it, you know. So that's an example of somebody who's able to go through surgery without any medication and was able to leave the hospital that day and no doubt healed quicker than somebody who would have gone through surgery with medication. So you guys have a good night, all right? Go home, stay safe.
Raise your hand if you spent time thinking about two things to compare for research.
Yeah. Wait.
Hey, everybody thought about it.
Yeah, maybe.
Good.
Try it more. Try more.
And write it down, and if we have time next week, we'll
We'll make time next week. to go over.
we'll do a round robin next week.
Is our nature thing good? Next question, right?
Yeah, you know, make it little, tiny, you know, just, you know, don't make it
Simpler
big
is
deal.
better. Typically what happens is when people think of research, it ends up being very broad. I describe it as a shotgun blast. What we're wanting is a rifle shot from half a mile. We really, really want you to narrow this down and focus.
All right. You guys
Everybody be safe.
Stay safe. I'm going to email people who need to have the syllabus and
Please.
who else needs.